scream or shout with all your might. Dig in your heels and hold on tight. Either you are wrong,
all right.
or I am right.
And thank you very much. Okay, we are flying here today. We are flying on fumes. I promised all of you out there some philosophy. We're gonna get to it. We're also in a rush. This might be a little short today because I have to get to philosophy class. I need to actually be there with my ass in the seat about an hour from now. Normally these things run about 54 minutes and some odd seconds because that's just where we ended up. So it may end up being a little short today. So let me tell you, first of all, in the control room, the lovely, the adorable, the hot, the Republican, but we love her anyway, Randy. And of course me here, behind the microphone, doling out the wisdom, doling out the intelligence, telling all of you stupid people out there what to believe and why to believe it. Me, Skip Doggy Dog, in the house. Thirdly, our introduction song, David Gilmour, off the 1984 album About Face, aptly titled, You Know I'm Right. Because of course it's a song about me, because you know I'm right. Those are your options, as he sang in the lyrics. Either you are wrong, or I am right. What other business do we need? Oh yes! Email address. The email address, if you want to comment on stating the obvious, is sto@204eastsouth.com. This email address is only mentioned in the audio commentaries, so you can't get it anywhere else. You have to actually suffer through listening to one of these things to reach it. Or at least suffer through listening to the first part, since I've already given it away. Alright, philosophy. Philosophy is something I enjoy, taking classes in philosophy right now over at CSU. This will give me plenty to talk about, including how incredibly boring reading philosophy is. Many of you probably already know that. It's like, these people need some serious editing going on. I understand you're a genius and all this other woo stuff, but man, you need to learn to write. Okay, let me tell you about my classes here. I'm taking Philosophy 100, which is basically an intro class. I almost took it once before. I went to 2 class sessions. It was incredibly boring. The professor was just, and these are seminar classes, so we're talking 150, 200 people here. So, I signed up for it again. Thought I'd check it out, whatever. Well, this guy who's teaching, and his name is, what is his name? Spears? Half the time even by the time a class is over, I still don't know the name of the person who is teaching me. And I figure, what the hell does it matter? Spear. R. Lee Spear. This guy is hilarious. No, he first of all, he's teaching it. He told us right up front, he says, I'm going to teach this essentially as an ethics class, because ethics is the one thing you have to do in life. It's an interesting point that he makes, He says you don't have to do all these other things. You can take all these classes for math, but you don't have to do math, and you can take a journalism class. You don't have to do journalism. Excuse me. You can take all these classes. You don't have to do any of this stuff, but one thing you have to do in your life is you have to make ethical choices, ethical decisions. It's an interesting point, and I think it's a valid point. So he's teaching his classes essentially an ethics class. I also say that it's definitely not boring, because typically a seminar class, you sit there and the guy lectures, blah, 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 blah. Now, we've only had one full official class session so far, but there was almost no lecturing. It was actually him conducting debates with the students and having students conduct debates with each other, and you're just sitting there in your chair, and you're hollering out whatever. So it was really interesting, and probably I mean, I've only had one session so far, but it looks like this is going to be the best seminar-type class I've ever taken. And I think, too, it takes a lot for a professor in a position in front of a big room like that to kind of give up a little bit of that control and let the students get in there and go at it. Because most of them, you put them in a room that size, they just want to stand there and go blah, 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 blah. Because it's like, oh, look, I have an audience. Now, of course, he's also a communist, pinko, leftist, animal rights wacko. But that's to be expected. My second class is philosophy, 205? 205, which is Introduction to Ethics. Now, of course, so for those of you who haven't picked up on this already, I'm essentially taking 2 ethics classes at the same time. I might not have done that if I'd have known what I was getting into, but since I thought Intro to Philosophy would actually be Intro to Philosophy, the first time I tried taking the class, they talked about the shadows on the wall and do we really exist and all this other crap, and that's kind of like why I was falling asleep. So, the second one seems to be pretty interesting so far, too. We're going to be using a lot of film and television. Our teacher is a Trekkie, so we'll be using Star Trek episodes for morality studies. This will be interesting. I have, in fact, used one already. It was a Next Generation episode from the first season. It was terrible. Oh my god, the acting. Oh my god, the production values. Oh my god, the dialogue. It was hideous. Oh, it was so bad. But yeah, it was, did I mention it was so bad? It was bad. Anyway, we'll be getting onto that. And this is a smaller class. I didn't actually count the heads in there. I'm going to say it's about 35 people. It seems to be a fairly good mix. It's not, because it's at 200 level, it's not all just a bunch of fish. There seems to be just, from looking around and trying to judge people's age and everything from what they look like, which I'm not that good at. But it seems to be a fairly good mix of years in college. There's this, it's going to be good. And so far the discussions have been very interesting. Nobody in there has made, an ass out of themselves or anything. All the commentaries and criticisms and ideas have been very well thought out. So, alright, now let's get into this. I just sewed. I'm supposed to be working on my grammar here. As opposed, I'm supposed to be running my mouth too, but I'm also supposed to be working on my grammar. By the way, let me take this moment while I'm looking through my notes to just point out one thing. This will come up in philosophy, my philosophical discussions. So you should know this right off the bat. I hate utilitarians. Now, don't misunderstand me here. I'm not saying that I have a slight amount of disagreements and dislike with utilitarians every once in a while. I hate utilitarians. You know the way Hitler hated the Jews? That's nothing compared to how much I hate utilitarians. I really fucking hate utilitarians. I hate, just in case you missed it the first time, just in case you're either a utilitarian or you voted for John Kerry, I hate utilitarians. Utilitarians are fucking idiots. And I should cover why I hate utilitarians, but I'm not going to cover that now because that's going to come down the road, because we'll be discussing utilitarianism in my classes. You can bet on it. Well, I know we'll be discussing it in the one. And I'm sure, you can bet on it. We'll be discussing it in both of them. And so it'll go. Excuse me. My hair is going into my mouth. What? Yeah. Randy's saying that something should be put in my mouth and shut me up. Mm-hmm. It's true. Stuff is socking it. I'm falling over. This is what I get for trying to record standing up. Where was I? Hating utilitarians. I hate utilitarians. Why do I hate we'll get into that when utilitarianism comes up. I just want to get this right out front. I really fucking hate utilitarians with a passion. These people are nitwits. Okay, let's start burning it. Burn one, man. Burn one. I wish I... Oh, I know I'm out of cigarettes. It's driving me insane. I could use a smoke right now. So bad. It's true. No, I never have cravings, hardly ever. I don't. Except with a beer, maybe, or like after a really good steak or something. But no, I never, like, during the middle of the day like this, have nicotine cigarette cravings. The only reason this is happening... But, yeah. No, the only reason this is happening is because I don't have any cigarettes. If I have cigarettes, I can go 2 weeks and never smoke a cigarette. When I run out, yeah, it's like, oh my god. Then, all of a sudden, I need one. Alright. I know, if I'd have prepped my notes while I was talking about cigarettes, but I didn't. So we started out with in the ethics class, the 200 level ethics class. I will refer to these as the ethics class for the 200 level class and the intro class for the 100 level class. In the ethics class, we started out with the typical discussion of cultural relativism. Blah, blah, blah. Pause, breathe, use Mr. Tongue and Mr. Teeth to form words. Okay. Inhale. We talked about... Yes! Stop it! Okay. Serious. Philosophy. This is deep shit, Randy. You stop fucking around. Thank you. No. No. Oh, you are so evil. Okay. Cultural relativism. Ethical relativism and ethical objectivism. So, of course, we did the typical discussion of those. And, you know, for those of you who haven't had a philosophy class before, this simply boils down to ethical relativism. Cultural relativism. Did I say cultural relativism, ethical relativism, and ethical objectivism? Yeah, I did. Okay. I'm getting confused. See, cultural relativism is simply a way of saying that different cultures do different things. They have different customs, different beliefs. I mean, yeah, okay. That's fairly obvious. Most people recognize that. Ethical relativism essentially says that there is no objective morality, meaning that if you have a culture that says, for instance, having sex with your own daughter is bad, in that culture having sex with your own daughter is ethically bad. But if you have another culture that says having sex with your own daughter is okay, then in that culture, ethically speaking, having sex with your own daughter is okay. Ethical relativism is simply a statement that there are no ethical or moral beliefs that are written in stone that apply to all societies. It just simply says that whatever a society thinks is good, whatever society or culture thinks is bad, is bad. This, if you ever take a philosophy class, if you haven't taken one yet, and you do take one, this is going to come up. And it's kind of a boring topic once you've been through it once. Oh! Sorry about that, folks. I was fixing the hair thing. The biggest problem with ethical relativism, of course, is that if everything is relative, then you're not in a position to ever say that anything is wrong. That includes, because ethical relativism is often touted, especially today, in the name of multiculturalism and diversity and all this other horse shit that comes out of people's mouths. We actually had some really good points made about this, because in the class, the instructor asked, what the hell is this guy's name? Hang on while I figure out who the hell the name is of Kevin Stanton. We're not supposed to call him Kevin. We're supposed to call him Professor Stanton, but this is my show and his name is going to be fucking Kevin. Okay? Because I'm not calling anybody professor or anything. So Kevin asked for input on why tolerance is so touted in our society, and people came up with some good points. Tolerance, of course, follows from multiculturalism, which follows from political correctness. If you simply tolerate other people's beliefs without passing judgment, that means you only have to look at the surface. You don't have to really think hard about their belief system, because there's no point in thinking hard about their belief system because you're not going to question it. That was a good point. And another one someone brought up is, and this one makes a lot of sense to me. I'd never thought of this before. If you can't judge other people, then that means other people can't judge you. If morals are ethical, are morals ethical, Randy? If morals are relative, that means if morals are relative and you can't judge somebody else for doing something, that means nobody can judge you for doing something. So if you go out and rape and kill some little 8-year-old boy, then nobody can tell you you're wrong because morals are ethical. Morals, I did it again. I don't know, maybe either the coffee's not kicking in or the coffee is kicking in. Because morals are relative. I thought that was an excellent point. So the short of this is that ethical relativism is obviously wrong, because if ethics are relative, if everything is relative, that means even ethical relativism itself is ethical. You can't even say if all morals and ethics are relative and simply dependent upon the culture they're in, then how can you say that tolerance is an ethic? If you have a culture that doesn't practice tolerance, then you can't go and tell them, well, that's unethical because all ethics are relative. And they say, well, in our society, our relative ethic is that we don't like tolerance. So ethical relativism does not work. Cultural relativism is, of course, a fact. Different cultures have different ideas and beliefs. Ethical relativism, I'm having a lot of problems with that word, simply states, there's no basis. I just said simply states there is no basis for right or wrong other than the codes each society comes up with, and there is no objective moral law. So I just started sentence with a so. Oh man, I'm doing bad today. I know I need to stop critiquing myself. I know you're keeping track of my mess ups. Then we discussed the diversity thesis, which is fascinating. The diversity thesis is a highly... What's the word I'm looking for? The diversity thesis is this brilliant brainchild of a thesis that some philosopher came up with, which simply states that different cultures have different ways of doing things. Now, I thought I heard that and I said, duh. In fact, I even wrote that in my notes. So, hey, different cultures do things differently. Isn't that exciting? Right. Okay. So, no, we'll get to that later. So this brings us to: are some cultures objective? Cultures. Oh my God! Shoot me now, Randy. Are some ethics and morals objective, not relative? It is to say, are there some beliefs that are present in all cultures and that always hold true? For example, is it always wrong to murder innocent people? Blah, blah, blah. From the ethical relativist point of view, one might say no, because different cultures do different things. But here's an important thing to think about when you're evaluating another culture's ethical beliefs. Let's use, and this is an example used in the book, but I think it's a really good example. Actually, let me use two examples. Here's the first example. If you're in India, you're a Hindu, and you're starving to death, and there's a cow walking by, you don't kill the cow and eat it, right? Now, if you're in America, and you're hungry, and there's a cow walking by, unless you're a vegetarian tree-hugging wacko, you're going to kill the cow, and you're going to have a barbecue. Some people might say that in India, they do not value human life as much, because they will not kill the cow and cook it in order to feed people. Now, on the surface, this might, you might say this is true, you might say it's not true, but here's what you need to do in a situation like this. Always look at the underlying values. Now, in India, if they're not going to kill a cow and eat it, why are they not going to kill a cow and eat the cow? The reason is because they believe in reincarnation. They believe that people come back as animals, or can come back as animals. This being the case, the cow that's walking by might in fact be your grandmother, reincarnated as the cow. Right? Right. So, why don't they kill the cow and eat the cow? Well, they don't kill the cow and eat the cow because the cow might be their grandmother. And you don't kill and eat your grandmother. Right? Right. In America, if you ask somebody, do you kill and eat your grandmother? They'll tell you, well, no, you don't. You don't kill and eat your grandmother. That's insane. So when you get to the lower level here, when you dig down under the surface stuff, when you stop being tolerant and looking only at the surface, you find the underlying value is actually the same. In America, we don't believe in eating grandma. In India, they don't believe in eating grandma. The difference is the belief system. In America, we do not believe that the cow might be grandma. In India, they do believe that the cow might be grandma. The belief system is different. The underlying ethical value is the same. Another example is the Eskimos. The Eskimos are known for sometimes committing... Do I want to try to say this word because I can never pronounce it right? Infanticide? Yeah. Killing their own children, killing their own infants. Now, of course, we look at this, and killing your own infant is pretty much frowned on in the United States. Randy? No. We are not doing the abortion debate yet. Not today. No, it's coming. Oh, don't worry, it's coming, because we are not doing that today. We are ignoring abortion for the purpose of this example, okay? Here in the United States, killing your own infant is generally considered a bad idea, something that's ethically wrong. In Eskimo culture, they often do this. Now again, let's look at the underlying reasons. The underlying reasons are that in their culture, resources are hard to come by. Also in their culture, they typically kill, it's more likely that they'll kill female children than male children. And here's the thing too, I'm not sure, I don't actually know this. I should research this, but it's not that big a deal, I don't think. I don't know if they actually kill them or if they let them starve. But yeah, but it's a good point. I mean, it's something I should check up on. Resources are hard to come by. The mother, in cultures like this, the mother tends to nurse a lot longer than we do in our culture. My understanding, I've never been an Eskimo woman with a baby, my understanding is that they can nurse as long as 3 to 4 years. And the mother has to carry the child around with her. She has to keep it under her clothes to keep it warm. So when you factor all these things in, if a mother has 2 or, God forbid, more children at once who are still nursing, who still have to be, carried around and kept warm with her, under her clothing, with her body, all of these things are going to essentially slow her down, for lack of a better phrase. They're going to cause unbearable, is that a word? Unbearable hardships. And so they make the choice to let the child die. And they do this as opposed to, if they try to provide for the child, keep the child alive, this is going to increase the chances that the entire family unit may meet with disaster and not survive. Why the females more often than the males? Because the males are the hunters. The males are the ones who go out on the ice and the snow, whatever, looking, and the males are the ones that are more likely to get killed and die off. So you have to make sure you've got a sufficient number of hunters, because the hunters, the men, are the more expendable ones. So you got to have extra ones around, because they're the ones most likely to get injured in an accident or something like that. Women, on the other hand, not being stupid, stay back at the camp and play it relatively safe. Like you. Go out there and get us something to eat. We'll be here watching Oprah eating bonbons. See, women aren't stupid. You, Eskimo motherfucker, get your ass out there and kill a polar bear so we have something to eat. I'm going to be back here at the igloo chilling. So, what is the underlying value underneath the Eskimos' actions, underneath their beliefs, underneath their traditions? What is the moral, ethical value underneath all of this? The moral, ethical value underneath all of this is the preservation of the family unit, the preservation of the continuation of the family unit, which is essentially the same idea that we have here. I mean, everybody tries to protect their family, right? I mean, most people do. I mean, my step-family I wouldn't try to protect, because except for my stepsister, they're all a bunch of fucking idiots. But, yeah. So, right. So when you, I think it can be said that there may, I think personally, it can be said that there might be some ethical, moral beliefs which are objective, that are common everywhere. There's of course the example about lying. If you live in a society where there's no value placed on telling the truth, if just everybody lies all the time, then you can't really have much of a society based on that. If you ask somebody what time is it, and they lie to you every time, then there's not any point in asking people what time it is. You can't get any useful information, and if you're going to lie every time somebody asks you something, or if you talk to somebody, you're not going to give any useful information. The point of this is that a society is not going to be able to flourish. We had an interesting discussion, sidetrack, on how do you know if something is morally right or wrong. And one way that was pointed out that you can determine if something is morally right or wrong, and I think this is interesting and useful, and let me stress this is just one way, is does the belief, action, whatever, does it help a society flourish? And I think that's a good point. You know, if you're looking at, say, always lying versus always telling the truth, and of course in philosophy you always get into all these extreme examples, like nobody ever always lies. Nobody ever always tells the truth. For the sake of our thought experiment or discussion here, let's pretend. You know, if you have a society where everybody lies all the time, you have a society where everybody tells the truth all the time, which of these societies is most likely to flourish? Well, the one where everybody lies all the time can't possibly flourish. You can't even conduct a simple business transaction. You know, you go in a store, you say, how much is this bubble gum? Well, the person is going to lie. They're going to tell you it's $17. Then you're going to say, oh, okay, well, I'll take it. Here's a 20, but you're really giving them a 10. And then they're going to say, here's your $3 change, but they're really going to give you 75 cents. I mean, you can't form a society if everybody is always lying all the time about everything. Therefore, you need to tell the truth often enough that your society can flourish. Right? Tell the truth often enough. That's my practice. I tell the truth often enough that I can get away with it. Here's my great note on this one. If you say, quote, you should be tolerant, unquote, then that is not relative, it's objective. So therefore, ethical relativism cannot be true. I'm having so much problem with the word relativism. See, I said it fine there. Right. And Kevin made another interesting point. He said, because somebody brought up, well, does somebody who believes in moral objectivism, does that mean they know all the right answers? And he said, well, no, just An objectivist, in order, and this is to technically be called an objectivist, because remember, there's always, we're getting into philosophy, there's always going to be a problem here that there are going to be very strict definitions of a lot of these words. And I'm not always going to be dealing with strict definitions. I'm going to try to distinguish between strict definitions and loose definitions. Kevin pointed out that to be considered an objectivist, that doesn't mean you have to actually know or think you know what the right answer is. It just means you have to believe there is a right answer. Excuse me. So keep that in mind. We talked about, and then of course we talked about what is a culture. Because if you're, here's an interesting point too, if your ethics are relative, if they're based on your culture, you have to keep in mind that most of us have multiple cultures. For example, I have a culture in that I am a citizen of the United States. There's one culture. I am a citizen of Texas. There's another culture. I'm a citizen of the South, the former Confederate States of America. There's another culture. I am a libertarian with a small L. There's a culture. I am a Nietzschean Superman. There's another culture. So under one of my cultures, the culture of being a Southerner and a member of the former Confederate States of America, it is acceptable to me, for example, to celebrate Confederate Flag Day and Confederate Memorial Day. As an American, however, where we have been taught that tolerance is good unless you're having tolerance for white people from the South, because every white person from the South is, of course, a racist, sexist, homophobic piece of shit, and it's okay to hate them and Christians and rich white people. But other than that, we're supposed to be really tolerant and never ever pass judgment on others. So as a citizen of the United States of America, it is not acceptable for me to celebrate Confederate Flag Day and Confederate Memorial Day. So if your ethics are relative to your culture, you can pick and choose what culture you want to define as your primary culture and do whatever you want. And then, of course, there's the question of how many people do you need to make a culture? Well, if I and my friend get together and we decide we're going to make our own little culture, and in our culture it's okay to kill other people, then that means that according to cultural relativism, killing other people is okay. So there are serious problems with the belief of cultural relativism, and I tend to agree with all of this. And no, actually, I do agree with all of this. It's not just tending. I do. I think there are serious problems when you say you can just completely make things up, which is, to a large extent, what cultural relativism is saying. And that's not to say, yeah, you know me, that's not to say there aren't times where I think you need to make things up, because we talked about this in the class too. So, let me think if I'm finished talking about this, because I think I am. Then we got into religion. We want to save that. I want to talk about the Star Trek episode that we watched. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, we'll talk about that later. Where was I? Randy, where was I? A Star Trek episode. Okay, the really bad Star Trek episode. Essentially, here's what happened. They stumbled upon a planet where there are two planets, and one of the planets had managed to hook everybody else on the other planet on drugs, a narcotic. The people on we refer to them as the dope dealers and the drug heads. The drug heads were under the impression that the narcotic they were taking was a cure for a plague on their planet, and it was the only thing that could keep them alive. And the dope dealers this drug was made from a plant that only grew on their planet, so they exported it to the other planet, and this was the only industry they had. Now, of course, all of this, this is Star Trek. Like, this could really happen. Like, you get everybody on a planet hooked on a narcotic. Like, nobody would ever figure this out. So it's like, come on. I love the way they act like. I mean, look at our planet. We have multiple cultures all over this planet. But I love the way on Star Trek, every planet has like one culture. Everybody on the whole planet has the same belief systems, and they wear the same clothes. And it's like, come on, please, can we get serious here? Whoa, I'm falling over again. I should sit down before I hurt myself. So here was, of course, what the question came down to is, does Picard help these people or not? Because helping them would, of course, be a violation. Well, alright, interfering a violation of the Prime Directive. We had people who said that they should have interfered. We had people who said they didn't. Dr. Crusher wanted to interfere, tell these people, you're hooked on a drug, and create synthesize a substitute that would help them get off of their addiction without going through serious withdrawals and all this other stuff. In the end, of course, they used the Prime Directive and everything. We won't go into the story because everything came out hunky-dory, because it always does on television. I think it made some good points, though, and there were some good points made in the discussion. One of them was that, of course, in this situation, Picard and everybody else on the Enterprise was looking at this situation from the outside and with a very limited amount of experience with the cultures and the civilizations and the people they're dealing with. This is something we always have to be careful with. For example, right now at the Iraq War and the terrorist attack, 9/11, and all that other good stuff, a lot of people in the United States are making a lot of judgments about people in Iraq and the Middle East. We have to be careful and ask ourselves, to what extent do we know what the hell we're talking about? Because, half the people who are running around saying, you nuke Iraq, or, maybe not nuke Iraq, I'm going over the top. So let me back up and keep this in the bounds of reality. A lot of the people who are in support of the Iraq War, before 9/11, couldn't find Iraq on a map. So you have to say to yourself, how much about the situation can these people possibly know? And if you don't know that much about it, do you need to be making moral, ethical choices about this scenario? And I think there's a good point to be made there that you don't, that maybe you need to back off and chill. Now, I made the point, and we actually, oh wait, I have it. I have my notes. What a concept. I have my notes here. I'm using them. Wow. He gave us a sheet to go with watching this that actually has the Prime Directive on it. Here is the Prime Directive from Star Trek. As the right of each sentinel let me start over. As the right of each sentient species to live in accordance with its normal cultural evolution is considered sacred, no Starfleet personnel, Federation citizen and/or representative, may interfere with the normal and healthy development of alien life and culture. Such interferences include introducing superior knowledge, strength, or technology to a world whose society is incapable of handling such advantages wisely. Starfleet personnel may not violate this Prime Directive even to save their lives and/or their ship installation unless they are acting to right an earlier violation or an accidental contamination of said culture. This directive takes precedence over any and all other considerations and carries with it the highest moral obligation. Now, I jumped on this and I said, part of the problem here is that Picard is a pussy. A real starship captain, like James Kirk, would have went in there with his phasers blowing, because James Kirk knows that the Prime Directive says no blah blah blah, may interfere with the normal and healthy development of alien life and culture. And as Kirk would be the first one to point out, this is not normal and healthy development. Now, some people, of course, made the point, well, maybe it's supposed to be that way. But then you get into a problem because you could say, well, maybe the Jews were supposed to be put into concentration camps. Maybe that was normal and healthy. Maybe as human beings, maybe we're supposed to, if you're an animal rights wacko, I could tell you, well, maybe we're supposed to eat animals and torture animals. Maybe that's normal and healthy. Normal and healthy, I think, is in here for a reason. It's because, and we're doing deep moral analysis on a TV show. It's so fucking sad. This is what I've been reduced to. But seriously, we are doing deep moral analysis on a TV show, but you'll forgive me. The reason the Prime Directive says normal and healthy development is because it's not relative. It's objective here. You're not supposed to interfere in normal and healthy development. I said this is clearly a case. This is not normal and healthy. You can do something. It's cool. And of course, Kevin didn't quite grasp what I was saying, I don't think. And he says, so you're saying you just make it up as you go along? And I'm like, well, yeah, if that's what you want to call it, whatever. But you're not. But here's the thing, Kirk violated the Prime Directive all the time, but he never made things up as he went along. Kirk went in there, he saw things, he said, no, this is wrong. The Prime Directive says normal, healthy. I fucked the Prime Directive. And this is going to bring me to my next point, which is government and morality. Because there's some frightening people out there who think that morality and ethics comes from the government. My point with the Prime Directive is that just because the Prime Directive says you don't interfere, that doesn't mean you don't interfere if your ethical beliefs tell you you need to interfere. In the case of Picard, he's saying, well, I feel your pain, Crusher. I can see that, yeah, this is bad, but we can't interfere because of the Prime Directive. Yeah, when you start subjugating your ethical and moral beliefs to laws that are written on paper by a bunch of fat, stupid people sitting behind a desk eating jelly donuts who fucked a bunch of other people over and stabbed them in the back in order to amass more power, then you have a problem. The government is not the source of morality. It's not the source of ethics. And I say that not just as, with my libertarian beliefs coming out, but I say that with my full ethical beliefs. Because look at all the things that have been legal or illegal, and tell me, are they right or wrong? At one time, it was legal to buy alcohol. Then Prohibition came along, and then Prohibition went away. So before Prohibition and after Prohibition, drinking beer was ethically okay, but during Prohibition suddenly it became ethically wrong. To use our favorite examples, there was a discussion about this on the WebCT, which is a bulletin board type thingy used by people in a class. There's a discussion about this from my intro class. About using the same scenarios over and over and over because they're all anybody knows. So if laws and ethics and morality is determined by the government, then that means when the South had black people as slaves, that was morally okay because it was not against the law to have a black person as a slave. When we didn't allow women to vote, that means it was ethically, morally okay because the law said women couldn't vote. When Hitler put Jews into concentration camps, and that was morally and ethically okay because the law said to put Jews in concentration camps. In fact, if morality and ethics comes from the government, then that means if you were in Nazi Germany and the Gestapo came and knocked on your door and said, do you know where any Jews are at? And you said, no, Mr. Gestapo officer, even though there were Jews hiding in your attic, that means that was an immoral, unethical action, if morality comes from the government. So morality and ethics they cannot possibly come from the government, because, this gives us an even worse scenario than ethical relativism gives us. at least with ethical relativism, you're saying ethics depend on a culture or a society and the predominant beliefs in that culture or society. We discussed multiple cultures and societies, but even so, a culture, a society, and the beliefs and actions of that usually tend to change slowly over time. I mean, there are sudden events that can certainly shift that, major disasters or terrorist attacks on buildings and stuff. But they do, I think, most of the time they tend to shift subtly and slowly. So if you're getting your ethics and your morals from that, I mean, it's bad, but if you're getting your ethics and your morals from the government, where you wake up one morning and the government passes a law, and suddenly Jews have to be shipped off to concentration camps, I mean, you're in a bad situation. So this is another part of my entire argument against the Prime Directive here, is not just the normal and healthy development, but also the fact that when you start subjugating your ethical beliefs and actions to laws that are written by people who aren't there and don't know anything, and I mean, let's bring this back from Star Trek back, to our world today. I mean, anybody who goes into politics, don't let them kid you. People who go into politics for power. They can say, I want to help people. Bullshit. People go into politics for power. It's that fucking simple. And do you really want to get your moral beliefs, your ethical beliefs, from a bunch of backstabbing, two-faced, power-hungry pieces of shit who are simply manipulating you and everybody else in order to get more power for themselves? I mean, is this what you want to say? Well, this is the government. It's like drugs. Well, why drugs are wrong? Okay, so why are drugs wrong? Well, drugs are wrong because they're illegal. Oh, this is a definite one where we can seriously, I mean fucking seriously, get into this discussion about the government is not the source of morality. How many people think that drugs are wrong because the government has made them illegal? Well, illegal drugs are wrong. Why? Well, because they're illegal. That's fascinating. For a long time, marijuana was never illegal. Heroin was never illegal. Cocaine was never illegal. And now all of a sudden, well, they're illegal. They're wrong. How did we arrive at that? I mean, yes, I'll agree with you, they're illegal. That doesn't make them morally or ethically wrong. I am now flipping pages. Let's see, how much time do we have? Ooh, we're getting short. I got to get to class soon. All right, let's talk about. Well, actually, we started this discussion already. I was going to get at government and morality from a completely different point of view, but we got there. I was going to get there from the religion aspect. If you take a philosophy class, you're always going to have to go through this discussion: does morality come from religion? And I like to point out that in none of these classes, and I put this on WebCT also, I haven't seen any responses to it yet, and I'll be interested to see if anybody says anything. You always have to sit through this boring discussion about, does morality come from religion? Can you have morality without religion? And I would like, just for once in one of these classes, to have an equal discussion. Can you have morality without government? Can you have morality without laws? Does morality come from the government, or are they separate things? Again, we had to go through the can you have morality without religion, and of course we always cover religion from the Judeo-Christian, blah blah blah, And here's my comments on this. The answer, of course, is that you don't need morality to have. You don't need morality. You don't need religion to have morality. You don't need morality either. Screw it. Now I forgot one of my points that I was going to make. I hate when that happens. If I used a pencil once in a while. I've got a pencil right here. I should take this with me to class, too, in case you have a Scantron test, which we will. There'll be a quiz today. Oh, I guarantee you there'll be a quiz today. There is no doubt in my formerly military mind. What was my other point, Randy? Now, I know what that point was. What the hell was my other point? Oh, God, I hate when that happens. Alright, I wanted to make the other point first, but I've forgotten it. if we're... Oh, yes, thank you. So this is why Randy's here, not just because she's hot and adorable. Yeah. First of all, if we're going to say that morality comes from religion, I'm going to say, well, do we want to get our morality from these people? Because, I mean, let's look at the Jews who were wandering in the desert following Moses around. I mean, Moses had to come down from the mountain with the 10 Commandments written in stone, and one of the commandments is, thou shalt not kill. Now, I mean, look, if God has to tell you, if God has to come down and, like, write on a piece of rock that killing people is bad, I mean, if you can't figure that one out on your own, you're obviously not got a lot going on upstairs. I mean, do we want to get our moral, ethical beliefs from a religion that is believed by a bunch of people that need to be told killing people is bad? I mean, that's frightening stuff to me. I'd say that kind of tongue-in-cheek and kind of seriously. That's one of those things. This is one of those moments that, yeah, I'm kind of being funny, but I'm also being serious. Think about it. Here's the other point. When we sit down and have this discussion, we're going to say, does morality need religion to exist? And then we begin discussing the Judeo-Christian religious tradition. So here's the problem. Here's how you know. There's two ways you know right away, without even having this discussion, that you don't need religion to be moral. The first way you know is you say to your... Well, see, and I got to decide quickly which way I'm coming at this. Okay. We're going to go this way. If you sit down, you say, do you need religion to have morality? You begin examining the Judeo-Christian belief system. And let's say at the end, for the purpose of this thought experiment, you have decided that yes, you need religion to have morals. You can't have morals without religion. Because you examined this from the Judeo-Christian the Judeo-Christian belief system. Thank you, Randy. Since you examined this from the Judeo-Christian belief system, and you've determined that you need the Judeo-Christian belief system to have morals, what does this say about everybody who is not part of the Judeo-Christian belief system? Does that mean they can't have morals? Right, exactly. What about people who are Buddhist? What about Hindus? What about Satanists? What about people who worship other systems like the Egyptian gods or the Greek gods or the Roman gods? What about all of those people? Are they not moral and ethical? Are they? Because if you determine at the end of your conversation that yeah, you have to have religion to have morality, and your whole conversation is centered on Judeo-Christian belief systems, then you've excluded all these other systems. And this brings us to the next reason why you know this is a fallacy right off the bat, because all you have to do is find somebody who is an atheist or a Buddhist or anything else and ask them, do you have morals and ethics? Probably they'll say yes. You can confirm this. You can follow them around for a while and see if they behave morally and ethically most of the time, and all you have to do is find one atheist who has morality and ethics, and you don't need religion to have morality and ethics. And since most of us in the modern world know somebody who's an atheist, or at least an agnostic or something, and none of these people are running around mass murdering people and raping 8-year-old girls and committing cannibalism on their grandmother or anything else, it's fairly obvious that you don't need religion to have ethics, as I beat my pencil on the paper. So the whole discussion, I think, you shouldn't even be wasting your time talking about it, because the discussion, the theory, the whole point, it's flawed, obviously, from the very beginning. You don't even need to waste your time going into it. But of course, we killed a little bit over an hour talking about it anyhow. Why? Because we could. And I know, when I'm looking for my notes, I have got to get going to class, or I'm going to be, I haven't even covered... oh goodness, I have not even covered a bunch of things. We'll be revisiting this. I'll have stuff more from class pretty soon. So I gotta fly. Randy, cue the music. Let's beat it. Yeah, we went over instead of under. We actually went over. This is the longest one yet.